Now to send extra data to Firestore, here in the auth Dart, after uploading the image, I want to use Firebase Firestore, a new object which we can use after adding this import here to the file, the Cloud Firestore import. And with that added, we can access Firebase Firestore instance, just as we used this instance property on Firebase storage and also on this auth package provided by Firebase. And this instance can then be used for talking to this database here and for uploading and fetching data. Now here it's important to understand that Firestore works with so-called collections, which you can think of as folders that contain data. So on this instance, we can call collection to reach out to a collection or create it if it doesn't exist yet. And I'll name this collection here users, because this should be a folder, you could say, that should contain some user data. Now in this Firestore database provided by Firebase, these collections then contain so-called documents, which are the actual data entries. And a document then in turn could have more nested collections if you needed to, but here I'll just have this one root collection called users, and in that collection I'll add a new document by using the doc method, which can be chained on the result of calling collection. Here you then give this document a name, and this could be a fixed name, or as I want to do it here, a dynamic name, because here I want to use that user ID as a name. So just as I used it here as a file name, I'll use it here as a collection name, just without the JPEG thing at the end. This will then create a new document in a collection called users. And now we just need to tell Firebase which data should be stored in that document. And that's done by chaining the set method here after this document. And of course, as with all these Firebase features, you can always dive into the official Firebase documentation to learn all about these packages and these Firebase services, and to learn all about the things you can do with them. Here we're using set on this document to define the data that should be stored in that document. And for that here, Firebase actually wants to get a map where the keys will be the keys that will also be used in the database, and the values will then be the values that should be stored under those keys in the database. And here I want to store a username, which is to be done, because that's a feature we have yet to add. Then also maybe an email, which of course already was stored here by Firebase when using this auth package, but we can also store it again here, the entered email that is. And then this image URL stored in a key named image_URL, for example, though these key names are all up to you. And that here, of course, is that image URL I'm getting here by calling getDownloadURL. So that's now the data that should be set in this document in this collection. And then here in the end, set yields a future, which we therefore should await to make sure that we wait until this operation is completed. And with all of that added here, we should now be storing this extra data in this Firestore database. Hence we can save this, reload the app, and then log out to make sure that we can create another new account with an unused email address. Also add an image, like this. Click sign up. And now we should actually be able to reload here in this Firestore database part of Firebase. And I actually don't see the data here because I got an error in my debug console. Looks like the package actually wasn't found. And that's an error that should be fixable by stopping this process and restarting this run app process to make sure that all the newly added packages are incorporated into this app bundle correctly. And here for me, this compilation process actually fails because in the end here for me, it turns out that for Android, I need to set a higher min SDK version than 16. This package, at the moment I'm recording this, needs at least version 19. So therefore here to make sure that this works, I should go back to Android and then their app build Gradle, a file we did edit earlier in this course. And there under Android, in the default config, we should set the min SDK version to 19. And besides setting this min SDK version, at least here at the point of time I'm recording this, I also have to add one other setting to this default config in this build Gradle file in the app folder, in the Android folder. And that's the multi-dex enabled setting, written like this. And the casing does matter, and here this should be set to true. With this entry added, and this min SDK version set as mentioned in that error message, if I now go back, save everything and run this again, it should now compile successfully, and the app should run successfully. And it does. And therefore now if I log out, create another new user here, with email and password, and I add my image as I did before. If I now click sign up, this still works, I'm still logged in, and it might take a short while until it's done, but then it works. And now here, if I go back to Firestore database and I reload this page, I now do see this users collection with one new document that carries the ID of the user that was created as a name. And in there, in this document, I see these different key value pairs that were stored, including this image URL of the uploaded image. And that's how we can store user-specific data, not with help of this authentication service, but by simply storing extra data with help of Firestore. And now I just want to complete this data here by also providing an actual username.